With Remembrance Day coming up, today I'm going to teach you how to draw some poppies. So we're going to do a practice drawing first on either a whiteboard or a scrap piece of paper, and I'll teach you how to draw poppies facing different ways, so facing forward or down or up, or maybe even some poppies that haven't bloomed yet. So we're going to practice that first, and then we'll make our good copy. And you can make the same composition that I have here, or you can make up your own. But we're going to keep in mind trying to keep our picture feeling balanced and have variety. At the end, you're going to get to color it in with whatever materials you have. So you could use watercolor like I use, or wax crayons, markers, pastels, anything will work. But I'm going to show you some tips to make it look really interesting and realistic by having some highlights and low light colors. So stick around to learn how to draw some Remembrance Day poppies. Grab a whiteboard or a plain piece of paper to do some practice doodles on. So first we're going to practice drawing some poppies. Poppies usually have 4 round petals. So I'm going to start by making a poppy that's facing me. So 1 big round petal, 2, 3, 4. If that was a little tricky for you to draw, you can also do 4 circles, all kind of meeting together. For the center of our poppy, we're going to add a circle first. And you can color it in now if you'd like, or you can just wait to color on our good copy. And then to add a little bit more texture, we're going to add, I'm not really sure what the word is for these, but this little detail to show that there's some texture to the inside of our poppies. So I'm drawing a short line out and adding it with a little circle. Short line out, end it with a little circle. You can have as many or as few as you'd like. You can play around to see what you think looks good. Just makes our poppy look a little bit more realistic. There we go. So that is 2 different examples of a poppy facing you. Now here's what you would see if a poppy was facing up. I'm going to start with a round, kind of like a smile shape. This is for the bottom of our poppy. And then on the top, I'm going to make 2 or 3 bumps to show the petals. So it looks like they are curling up. Just like that. If you want, you could continue those lines to the bottom, but I kind of like it like that. And another thing to make it look like poppies is we're going to add what's left of the poppy bud on the bottom. So I'm going to put a circle on the bottom. And I'm going to make these little leaves kind of poking out. So they're kind of like organic shaped triangles where they start thick and then get a little bit thinner at the ends, just to make it look more realistic. If you look at pictures of real poppies, this is what they have on the bottoms, connected to the stem. You could draw the stem if you'd like. All right, now poppies have very thin stems, so they often kind of, what's the word for it, curve and twirl. Sometimes they flop over. So the next poppy we're going to draw is one that's upside down. It's pretty much exactly like this, but we're going to flip it upside down. So I'm going to start with this shape, like a rainbow. Then I'm going to add my 2 or 3 curved lines to show the petals. If I want them to go a little bit further, I can. And this time I'll add my bud on the top part here with those little leaves. Sometimes the leaves stretch onto the flower, and sometimes they curl back off. All right, and the same thing if you wanted to draw a flower that was sideways, you would just start with the shape going the other way. So maybe like a C shape, some bumps, and then you'd add your little bulb over here. That's how we can draw some poppies. Now let's practice drawing some leaf shapes. Leaves are rounded on one side, and then it comes to a point on the other side, so just like that. And leaves can be all different shapes and sizes, so don't worry if yours looks a little different. Leaves can be wider than that. Leaves can be skinnier than that. There's lots of different types of leaves. A leaf on a poppy actually has kind of a zigzagged edge to it, so if you want to make it really realistic, to make our leaves a bit more interesting, we want to add some detail on top. And there's lots of different ways to do it. To make your picture really interesting, I recommend that you try a couple different of these ways. So let's try on this first one, draw a line straight down from point to point. And then on one side, I'm going to add diagonal lines all the way down, just on one side. All right, let's try another design for leaves. Same thing, start with that straight line down. For this one, I'm going to draw diagonal lines coming in from both sides. You could even draw a couple extra lines, kind of making the ends look like lowercase y's. This is the most realistic way. If you really study a leaf, you'll see that pattern on there. Let's try another one. Let's maybe space out the lines a bit more. Maybe I'll do it on the other side too. Just make sure that you are adding a pattern on there that looks like a leaf, but makes your drawing a little bit more exciting, a little bit more doodly. All right, we've got our poppies, we've got our leaves with different doodle patterns. The last thing I need to teach you is how to make a poppy bulb. So this is just before it blooms and it's all curled up still. So it's actually pretty simple. I'm going to start with a stem, and a stem can go any direction. I'm kind of making it curl this way. Good. So I've got my stem, and then I'm going to make a circle on the end. This is where all the petals are curled up in right now. So I'm going to add maybe some curved lines on the outside. And then I'm going to show a little bit of texture on the bottom, like some of the petals are starting to stick out. I'm going to make a couple of straight lines coming out. If you want to add little circles, you could. Let's try to make another bulb. Let's make this one, maybe this one will pop up this way. There's my stem, then a circle or oval, lines going down to my stem, then a couple popping out of the top, like it's just about to bloom. All right, so now I have my good copy piece of paper, and I'm going to use what I learned by making those doodle poppies to make my work of art, my good copy work of art. So I'm going to draw a couple different poppies on this sheet of paper, and I want it to feel balanced. So I'm not going to draw them all on one side. I want it to feel balanced on my whole sheet of paper. I want to use my space well, and I want to have some variety, which means I'm not going to draw all the poppies the exact same way. Some might be facing up, some might be facing down, maybe some are open, some are still just in the buds. So that's what I'm going to do on this sheet of paper. Let's start by maybe making one poppy facing me right here. I'm going to try to make it fairly big. So I've got those 4 big petals. And I always do it in pencil first. And I'll draw my center. And I'll fill this in black when I am going over my drawing with Sharpie. But for now, pencil will work. And then poppies have kind of a twisty stem. All right, there's one poppy. I went all the way down to the bottom of my page. Let's try another one. Maybe this one's going to be facing, maybe I'll make one facing down actually, kind of curved down. Can you make that shape? Add 3 bumps for the petals. Poppies have the little bud on the back. A couple of the leaves, maybe some are curved back, some might be touching my poppy. And then my stem, since this one is going down, I'm going to make it go up first and then down just like that. All right, maybe I need a bud over here. I think I'll draw a poppy bud next. And your picture can be exactly like mine, but you can also get creative. And you can draw your poppies where you want them to go. The trick is to look for a white space and fill it in with something. So if I see maybe there's a big white space here, maybe I'll add a leaf. Maybe it's feeling a little bit unbalanced. I have lots of flowers on this side, but not very on this side. So maybe I'll draw one over here. So you can make your composition however you'd like. You can have as many or as few poppies as you want, but try to make it feel balanced and have variety. Add a couple leaves. If you want to add those doodle details, it just makes it look even more interesting. A little bit more texture. I think I'm going to make one more. Maybe I'll make a poppy coming off of that same stem. Maybe just a little one, like it's about to open. All right, when you're happy with your composition, it feels balanced, you have some variety, then you're gonna go over your whole drawing with Sharpie, and then we'll color it in. So now that I've gone over my drawing with Sharpie, I'm ready to add some color. And you can color with any materials you have. You could use crayons, you could use wax pastels, you could use paint, you can use markers, anything you'd like. But the trick to make this really look realistic is to use many shades of red or green. So I'm going to make my poppies red, of course, and my leaves green, but I'm not just going to use one color of red. I'm going to add lots of different shades. So I want to make some highlights. Highlights are maybe where the sun is hitting the poppy, so it looks a little bit brighter. So maybe I want some shades of orange for my highlights. I also want to have some low lights. Maybe there's something casting a shadow on this poppy. So I'm going to use maybe some purples and pinks to add some low lights. Most of the poppy, I want it to look bright red. So I'm just using little touches of oranges or pinks or purples, but most of it should be red. So I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm going to color one of these with crayons, and then I'm going to paint the rest. For you, I think just pick one, but I want to show you how you could do both ways. Okay, so either paint all your flowers or use crayons or markers or anything, but probably do them all the same way. So here's how I would do it if I was coloring with crayons. I'll do this one with crayons. So maybe I do some parts that are orange, and I color a little bit lightly with these colors. Maybe there's a highlight over there, and maybe I'll do a little bit of pink right here. And then maybe there's a shadow down on this side. So I'm going to add this kind of pinky red, purpley red here. And maybe even a little bit purple on the bottom. Not too much. I don't want this to look like a purple flower. I still want it to look red. So you can see I'm just doing a little bit. And then if I'm going to go over the whole thing with my red crayon, and that will help it all blend together. And it will look like a red poppy that just has touches of other colors in it, but it still looks bright red, which is what I want. There we go. Do you see how that makes it a lot more interesting, a lot more realistic when you have different shades? So that's how you could do it if you're using pastels or crayons or pencil crayons to color. Same thing with markers. Now I'm going to show you what it looks like with paint. So I've got my watercolor palette here. I'm going to wake up pink. I'm going to wake up orange. I'm going to wake up red and just a tiny bit of purple, not much. All right, so maybe I'll start with some of this pink color. I'm just going to dab a little bit on each flower. I don't want a whole flower to be just one color. I want them all to have a little bit of all of these colors on them. Okay, maybe I'll try some orange now. Just a little bit. Stay in the lines. Take your time. Okay? Grab some of that bright red to kind of blend it together. I still want it to mostly look red. I don't want my poppies to look pink or orange or purple. I just want touches of those colors. All right, now I'll just add a tiny bit of purple. I'm going to even mix it with my pink just so it doesn't get too dark. Tiny little bits. All right, same thing for the greens. Use a couple different shades. I'm going to wake up my dark green, my bright green, and even some yellow. Carefully paint in the lines. Last step is to sign your work of art, and then you are all done.